Emma was only 6 years old when she first saw a piano. It was sitting in the corner of her school's music room. The piano was old and dusty. Some of its keys were yellow, but to little Emma it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. She walked slowly toward it. Her small feet made soft sounds on the wooden floor. The other children were playing outside, but Emma did not want to play. She wanted to touch the piano. She reached out her tiny hand. Her fingers touched one white key. She pressed it down. A sound came out. It was soft and sweet. Emma smiled. She pressed another key, then another. The sounds made her heart feel warm. "What are you doing here, child?" a voice asked. Emma turned around quickly. It was Mrs. Johnson, the music teacher. She was an old woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "I'm sorry," Emma said. Her voice was very small. "I just wanted to touch it." Mrs. Johnson did not look angry. She walked over to Emma and sat down on the piano bench. "Do you like the piano?" she asked. Emma nodded her head fast. "It makes pretty sounds," she said. Mrs. Johnson smiled. "Would you like to learn how to play?" Emma's eyes grew big. Can I really learn?" "Of course you can," Mrs. Johnson said. "But you will need to practice a lot. Playing piano is not easy." That evening, Emma ran home as fast as her little legs could carry her. She lived in a small apartment with her mother, Sarah. The apartment had only 2 rooms. The paint on the walls was old and cracking, but Emma did not care about that. She loved her home because her mother was there. Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table when Emma burst through the door. She was still wearing her work uniform. Sarah worked at a factory that made clothes. She worked from early morning until late at night. Her hands were always tired. Her back always hurt, but she never complained. She did everything for her daughter. "Mama, Mama," Emma shouted. She jumped into her mother's arms. Sarah laughed and hugged her tight. "What is it, my little one? Why are you so excited?" "I found a piano at school," Emma said. Her words came out fast. "Mrs. Johnson said I can learn to play. Can I, Mama? Can I please learn?" Sarah's smile became smaller. She looked at her daughter's hopeful face. Learning piano cost money. Piano lessons were expensive. Sarah barely had enough money for food and rent. How could she pay for lessons? "Emma," Sarah said softly, "piano lessons cost a lot of money. I don't know if we can." "Please, Mama," Emma said. Her eyes were shining. "I want to learn so bad, and you know what? I want to learn for you." Sarah's heart nearly stopped. "For me?" Emma nodded. "You always look so tired when you come home. You work so hard. I want to play beautiful music for you. I want to make you happy. I want to make you proud." Tears came to Sarah's eyes. She held her daughter close. This little girl had such a big heart. She never asked for toys. She never asked for new clothes. Her one wish was to learn piano, not for herself, but for her mother. "Let me see what I can do," Sarah whispered. The next day, Sarah went to talk to Mrs. Johnson. She explained that she did not have much money. She worked hard, but life was difficult. Mrs. Johnson listened carefully. "Your daughter has something special," Mrs. Johnson said. "I saw it in her eyes when she touched the piano. I will teach her for a lower price. Can you pay $20 a month?" $20. It was still a lot for Sarah. It meant she would have to skip some meals. It meant she would have to work even more hours. But when she thought of Emma's face, she knew what to do. "Yes," Sarah said, "I can pay $20. And so Emma's piano journey began. Every Tuesday and Thursday she would stay after school. Mrs. Johnson would teach her the basics. Emma learned about the keys. She learned about the notes. She learned how to sit properly and how to hold her hands. At home, Emma had no piano to practice on, but that did not stop her. Sarah found some cardboard boxes. Together, they painted white and black keys on the cardboard. They made a pretend piano. Every night, Emma would sit in front of her cardboard piano. She would move her fingers just like Mrs. Johnson taught her. She could not hear the notes, but she imagined them in her head. Sarah would sit beside her and watch. "That sounds beautiful," Sarah would say with a smile. Emma would giggle. "Mama, it doesn't make any sound." "I can hear it," Sarah would say, pointing to her heart. "I can hear it right here." Those nights were magical. The apartment was small and old. They did not have much food. They did not have nice things, but they had each other, and they had their dreams. Sarah would often fall asleep on the couch, too tired to walk to the bedroom. Emma would take an old blanket and cover her mother gently. She would kiss her forehead and whisper, "One day, Mama, one day I will play for you on a real stage. I promise." Months passed. Emma got better and better. Mrs. Johnson was amazed at how fast she learned. Most children got bored after a few weeks, but not Emma. She was always excited. She always wanted to learn more. "You have a gift," Mrs. Johnson told her one day. "Your fingers understand music, but more importantly, your heart understands it." Emma practiced every single day. Even when she was sick, even when she was tired, she never missed a lesson. She never complained. She thought about her mother's tired face. She thought about her mother's hard work. That gave her strength to keep going. One evening, Sarah came home from work. She looked more tired than usual. Her eyes were red. Her shoulders were low. It had been a hard day at the factory. Emma ran to her and took her hand. "Mama, come with me," she said. She led Sarah to the cardboard piano. Then Emma sat down and started to move her fingers. She played a simple song, just moving her fingers in the pattern she had learned. Sarah watched her daughter, and even though no sound came from the cardboard, she could feel the music. She could feel her daughter's love. Tears rolled down her face. "That was beautiful, Emma," she said. Emma looked up at her mother. "Did it make you happy, Mama?" Sarah knelt down and held Emma's face in her hands. "You make me happy, my child. You make me so proud, every single day." Emma hugged her mother tight. In that small, old apartment with nothing but a cardboard piano and endless love, a little girl held onto her dream. She did not know what the future would bring. She did not know that hard times were coming. But in that moment she was happy. Her mother was proud. And that was all that mattered. 5 years went by. Emma was now 11 years old. She had grown taller. Her hair had grown longer, but her love for piano had only grown stronger. Mrs. Johnson continued to teach her every week. Emma was now playing real songs. She could read music sheets. Her fingers moved fast and smooth on the keys. Other teachers at the school would stop by the music room just to listen to her play. "She is special," they would say. "That girl will go far." Sarah worked harder than ever. She now had 2 jobs. During the day, she worked at the factory. At night, she cleaned offices in a big building downtown. She hardly slept. She hardly ate. But she never stopped smiling when she saw Emma. Every penny Sarah saved went into a special jar. She was saving money to buy Emma a real piano one day. It was her secret. She wanted to surprise her daughter. One cold evening in November, Emma was waiting for her mother to come home. The clock showed 9 o'clock, then 10, then 11. Sarah was always home by 9:30. Emma started to worry. She sat by the window and watched the street below. The snow was falling gently. The streetlights made the snowflakes look like tiny stars. Emma pressed her face against the cold glass. "Where are you, Mama?" she whispered. At midnight there was a knock on the door. Emma's heart jumped. She ran to open it, expecting to see her mother. But it was not her mother. It was a policeman. He had a sad face. Behind him stood a woman Emma did not know. "Are you Emma?" the policeman asked. Emma nodded. Her hands started to shake. "I'm very sorry," the policeman said. His voice was gentle. "Your mother, she collapsed at work tonight. She was taken to the hospital." Emma did not wait to hear more. She grabbed her coat and ran. She ran through the snow, through the cold streets, all the way to the hospital. Her lungs burned. Her legs hurt. But she did not stop. When she reached the hospital, a nurse took her to a room, and there, lying on a white bed, was her mother. Sarah looked so small, so pale. There were tubes connected to her arms. Machines beeped softly around her. "Mama!" Emma cried. She ran to the bed and grabbed her mother's hand. Sarah's eyes slowly opened. When she saw Emma, she tried to smile, but the smile was weak. My little girl," Sarah whispered. "Mama, what happened? Are you okay? The doctors will fix you, right?" Emma's words came out fast. Tears were streaming down her face. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand softly. "Emma, listen to me." "No, Mama, don't talk. You need to rest. You'll be fine. You'll come home and I'll take care of you and—" "Emma," Sarah's voice was firm but loving, "I need you to listen." Emma stopped talking. She looked into her mother's tired eyes. "I have been sick for a while," Sarah said slowly. "I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want you to worry, but my heart, it's very weak." Emma shook her head. "No, no, Mama, the doctors can fix it. They can." "They can't, my love." A tear rolled down Sarah's cheek. "I don't have much time left." The words hit Emma like a wall of ice. She could not breathe. She could not think. This could not be real. This had to be a nightmare. "I'm so sorry," Sarah continued. "I wanted to see you grow up. I wanted to see you play on a big stage. I wanted to be there for everything." "You will be there," Emma cried. "Please, Mama, don't leave me, please." Sarah lifted her weak hand and touched Emma's face. "I will always be with you, my child. Every time you play the piano, I will be listening. Every note you play, I will hear it. I promise." Emma buried her face in her mother's chest. She sobbed so hard that her whole body shook. Sarah held her as best she could. She stroked her daughter's hair with trembling fingers. "Promise me something," Sarah whispered. Emma looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Promise me you will keep playing," Sarah said. "Promise me you will never give up on your dream. No matter what happens, no matter how hard life gets, promise me." "I promise, Mama," Emma said through her tears. "I promise." Sarah smiled. It was the most beautiful smile Emma had ever seen. "That's my girl, my brave, beautiful girl. I am so proud of you. I have always been proud of you." They stayed like that for hours. Emma held her mother's hand and never let go. She talked about their memories together, the cardboard piano, the pretend concerts, the nights they spent dreaming about the future. As the sun began to rise, Sarah's breathing became slower. Her eyes were closed, but she was still smiling. "Mama," Emma whispered. There was no answer. "Mama, please wake up." The machines made a long, steady sound. Doctors and nurses rushed into the room, but Emma already knew. She knew her mother was gone. The days that followed were a blur. Emma moved like a ghost. She could not eat. She could not sleep. She could not even cry anymore. She had no tears left. The funeral was small and quiet. Only a few neighbors came. Mrs. Johnson was there. She held Emma's hand throughout the whole service. After everyone left, Emma stood alone at her mother's grave. The snow had stopped falling. The sky was gray and empty. "I don't know if I can do this, Mama," Emma whispered. "I don't know how to live without you." The wind blew softly. It felt like a gentle touch on her cheek. Emma closed her eyes. She remembered her mother's last words. "Promise me you will keep playing." "I promised you, Mama," Emma said. "And I will keep my promise. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I will make you proud. I will play for you. Even if you're not here to see it, I know you'll be listening." She placed a small flower on the grave. Then she turned and walked away. Emma was sent to live with her aunt, was her mother's older sister. They had never been close, lived in a different town, far away from everything Emma knew. On her last day in the old apartment, Emma packed her few belongings into a small bag. She looked at the cardboard piano one last time. She could not take it with her. It was too big. She knelt down and touched the painted keys. "Goodbye," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." As she walked out the door, she carried with her the only thing that mattered, her mother's love and a promise she intended to keep. The future was unknown. The road ahead was dark, but somewhere deep inside a small flame still burned. It was the flame of her dream, the flame her mother had lit. And no matter what happened next, Emma would not let that flame die. Aunt lived in a small town called Riverside. It was far from the city where Emma had grown up. Everything was different here. The streets were quiet. The houses all looked the same, and nobody knew who Emma was. Aunt was not a bad person, but she was not warm like Sarah had been. She worked as an accountant at a local bank. She wore gray suits and kept her hair in a tight bun. She liked things neat and organized. She did not understand children very well. "Your room is upstairs," said when Emma arrived. "Dinner is at 6, lights out at 9. I expect you to keep things tidy." Emma just nodded. She did not have the energy to speak. The room was small but clean. It had a bed, a desk, and a closet. The walls were white and empty. There was no cardboard piano. There was no picture of her mother smiling. There was nothing that felt like home. Emma sat on the bed and stared at the wall. She felt so alone, so empty. The world seemed gray and cold without her mother in it. A week later, Emma started at her new school. It was called Riverside Middle School. The building was old and made of red bricks. The playground was large but empty of joy, at least for Emma. On her first day, the teacher introduced her to the class. "Everyone, this is Emma. She has just moved here. Please make her feel welcome." The other kids stared at her. Some whispered to each other. Emma kept her eyes on the floor. She did not want to be here. She did not want to be anywhere. During lunch, Emma sat alone at a table in the corner. She was not hungry. She just pushed her food around the plate. A group of kids walked over to her table. There were 3 of them, 2 boys and 1 girl. The tallest boy had blonde hair and a mean look in his eyes. His name was Tyler. "Hey, new girl," Tyler said. "Why do you look so sad? Did you lose your mommy?" The other kids laughed. They did not know how true those words were. They did not know that Emma's heart was shattered into a million pieces. Emma said nothing. She just looked down at her plate. "What's wrong? Can't you talk?" Tyler continued. "Are you stupid or something?" "Leave her alone," a small voice said. Everyone turned to look. It was a girl with glasses and curly brown hair. Her name was Maya. She was sitting at the next table. Tyler rolled his eyes. "Mind your own business, 4 eyes." But he walked away with his friends, laughing as they went. Maya came and sat next to Emma. "Don't listen to them," she said. "Tyler is a bully. He picks on everyone." Emma looked at Maya. "Thanks," she whispered. "I'm Maya. What's your name?" "Emma." Maya smiled. "That's a pretty name. Do you want to be friends?" Emma felt something warm in her chest. It was small, but it was there. "Okay," she said. Days turned into weeks. Emma and Maya became close friends. Maya was kind and funny. She made Emma smile sometimes, something that felt almost impossible before. But school was still hard. Tyler and his friends never stopped making fun of Emma. They called her names. They pushed her in the hallways. They laughed at her old clothes and quiet voice. One day in class, the teacher asked everyone to share their dreams for the future. One by one, the students stood up and talked about what they wanted to be: a doctor, a firefighter, a famous athlete. When it was Emma's turn, she stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were shaking, but she thought of her mother. She thought of her promise. "I want to be a piano player," Emma said softly. "I want to play at Carnegie Hall one day." The room went silent for a moment. Then Tyler burst out laughing. "Carnegie Hall," he shouted. "That's the most famous concert hall in the world. You, a nobody from nowhere, that's the thing I've ever heard." Other kids started laughing too. The sound filled the room like sharp knives cutting into Emma's heart. "Do you even have a piano?" another boy asked. Emma shook her head. "No, but—" "She doesn't even have a piano," Tyler yelled. "How are you going to play at Carnegie Hall if you don't have a piano? You're so dumb." The laughter grew louder. Emma felt tears burning in her eyes. She wanted to run away. She wanted to hide. "That's enough," the teacher said loudly. "Tyler, sit down. All of you stop laughing right now." The room became quiet, but the damage was done. Emma sat back down. She felt smaller than she had ever felt before. That night, Emma told Anne about her dream. She thought maybe would understand. Maybe she would help. "You want to play piano," said. She raised an eyebrow. "Emma, that's not realistic. Piano lessons are expensive. A piano itself costs thousands of dollars. You need to think about practical things, get good grades, find a normal job." "But Mama always believed in me," Emma said. "She always said I could." "Your mother is gone," said sharply. Then her voice became softer. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. But Emma, you need to understand reality. Dreams are nice, but they don't pay bills. Focus on your studies. Forget about the piano." Emma went to her room and closed the door. She lay on her bed and cried into her pillow. Her mother believed in her. Her mother knew she could do it. But her mother was gone, and everyone else thought she was just a stupid girl with a stupid dream. At school, things got worse. Tyler told everyone about Emma's dream. Now everywhere she went, kids would laugh and point. "Hey, it's the piano girl. Are you playing at Carnegie Hall today? Watch out, she might bore us to death with her music." Emma tried to ignore them. She tried to be strong. But every cruel word felt like a punch. Every laugh felt like a cut. Maya stayed by her side. "Don't give up, Emma," she would say. "They're just jealous. They have no dreams of their own." But Emma was losing hope. She had no piano. She had no teacher. She had no one who believed in her except Maya. How could she ever become a real piano player? How could she ever keep her promise to her mother? One evening, Emma sat by her window and looked at the stars. Somewhere up there, she believed, her mother was watching. "Mama," she whispered, "I'm trying, I really am, but it's so hard. Everyone laughs at me. Nobody thinks I can do it. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am just a stupid girl with a stupid dream." A tear rolled down her cheek. "But I promised you," she continued. "I promised I would never give up, and I won't. I don't know how, but I won't. Please help me, Mama. Please show me the way." The stars twinkled in the dark sky. Emma did not know that her life was about to change. She did not know that help was coming from a place she never expected. All she knew was that she had a promise to keep, and somehow, someway, she would find a way to keep it. Winter came to Riverside. The trees lost their leaves. The air became cold and sharp. Emma walked to school every morning with her head down and her hands in her pockets. It had been 3 months since she moved here. 3 months of loneliness. 3 months without touching a piano. Her fingers sometimes moved on their own, playing invisible keys in the air. But it was not the same. Nothing was the same. One afternoon, Emma was walking home from school. She took a different path than usual because she wanted to avoid Tyler and his friends. This path went through the older part of town, where the houses were bigger and the streets were quieter. As she walked, she heard something. It was faint at first, carried by the cold wind. But as she got closer, she could hear it clearly. It was music, piano music. Emma stopped walking. Her heart began to beat faster. She knew that melody. It was Chopin, one of the pieces Mrs. Johnson had taught her about back in her old school. She followed the sound. It led her to a small white church at the end of the street. The church was old but beautiful. It had tall windows and a wooden door that was slightly open. Emma stepped inside quietly. The church was empty except for one person. An old woman sat at a grand piano near the front. Her white hair was tied in a loose bun. Her fingers moved across the keys with grace and power. Emma stood frozen in the doorway. She had never heard anyone play like this in real life. The music filled the church and wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Tears began to fall from her eyes, and she did not know why. The old woman finished playing. The last note hung in the air like a whisper. Then there was silence. Are you going to stand there all day, or will you come in?" the old woman asked without turning around. Emma jumped. She did not think the woman had noticed her. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to bother you. I heard the music and you had to follow it." The old woman turned around. Her eyes were bright blue and they sparkled with kindness. "That's what music does. It calls to those who are meant to hear it." Emma wiped her tears. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." The old woman smiled. "Thank you, child. What is your name?" "Emma." "Emma, a lovely name. I'm Mrs. Helen Price." She patted the bench beside her. "Come, sit with me." Emma walked slowly down the aisle. Her legs felt weak, but something pulled her forward. She sat down next to Mrs. Helen on the piano bench. "Do you play?" Mrs. Helen asked. Emma nodded. "I used to. My mother. She paid for my lessons. I was learning before she—" The words got stuck in her throat. Mrs. Helen looked at her carefully. There was understanding in her eyes. "Before she passed away." Emma nodded again. A fresh wave of tears came. Mrs. Helen placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. "I am sorry, child. Losing a mother is the hardest thing in the world. I know because I lost my daughter 20 years ago. The pain never fully goes away, but it becomes something you carry with you, like a heavy stone that slowly becomes smooth." Emma looked at the old woman. She had lost someone too. She understood. "I promised my mother I would keep playing," Emma said quietly. "But I don't have a piano, I don't have a teacher, and everyone thinks my dream is stupid." "What is your dream?" Mrs. Helen asked. Emma hesitated. The last time she shared her dream, everyone laughed, but something about Mrs. Helen felt safe. "I want to play at Carnegie Hall one day. I want to make my mother proud." Mrs. Helen did not laugh. She did not roll her eyes. Instead, she smiled, a real, genuine smile. "That is a beautiful dream, Emma, and there is nothing stupid about it." Emma could not believe what she was hearing. You don't think I'm crazy?" "Crazy?" Mrs. Helen chuckled softly. "Child, I played at Carnegie Hall 3 times before I retired. I know what it takes to get there. And do you know what the most important thing is? It's not talent, it's not money, it's not even hard work, though that matters too." "What is it?" Emma asked. "Heart." Mrs. Helen placed her hand over her chest. "A dream that comes from the heart can never be stupid, and a promise made to a mother who has passed. That is the most sacred kind of dream there is." Tears streamed down Emma's face. For the first time since her mother died, someone believed in her. Someone understood. Mrs. Helen turned to face the piano. "Play something for me." Emma's eyes went wide. "What now? I haven't played in months. I'm probably terrible." "Play anyway. Let me hear what is inside you." Emma looked at the piano. Her fingers trembled as she placed them on the keys. She took a deep breath and tried to remember the songs she used to play with Mrs. Johnson. She started with a simple piece, one of the first songs she had learned. Her fingers were stiff at first. She made some mistakes, but slowly the music came back to her. The notes flowed from her hands like water returning to a dry river. When she finished, she looked at Mrs. Helen with worried eyes. "I'm sorry, that was full of mistakes." Mrs. Helen shook her head. "I didn't hear mistakes, Emma. I heard pain. I heard love. I heard a girl who lost everything but still held onto her dream. That is what music is supposed to be." She took Emma's hands in hers. They were old and wrinkled but warm and strong. "I have been alone for many years," Mrs. Helen said. "I stopped teaching after my daughter died. I thought music had no meaning for me anymore. But then you walked through that door and I heard something in your playing, something real, something alive." Emma listened, barely breathing. "I would like to teach you, Emma, for free, every day after school if you can come. This piano is old, but it still has a beautiful voice. Will you let me help you keep your promise?" Emma could not speak. She tried, but the words would not come. Instead, she threw her arms around Mrs. Helen and hugged her tightly. "I'll take that as a yes. Mrs. Helen said with a gentle laugh. From that day forward, Emma's life changed. Every afternoon, she walked to the little white church. Every afternoon, she sat at the grand piano with Mrs. Helen by her side. Every afternoon, she learned and practiced and grew. She did not tell Aunt where she went. She did not tell anyone at school. This was her secret, her sacred place, the place where she could be close to her mother again. And for the first time in a very long time, Emma felt hope. The road ahead was still long. There would be more pain, more tears, more challenges, but she was no longer alone. She had Mrs. Helen, she had music, and she had her mother watching over her from somewhere beyond the stars. 3 years passed. Emma was now 14 years old. She had grown into a quiet teenager with long brown hair and eyes that held both sadness and strength. On the outside, she looked like any ordinary girl, but inside, she carried a fire that burned brighter every day. Every afternoon, without fail, Emma went to the little white church. She told Aunt she was at the library studying. She told everyone at school she had nothing special going on. Nobody knew her secret. Nobody knew that behind those plain walls, a miracle was happening. Mrs. Helen was an incredible teacher. She had played on the biggest stages in the world. She had trained with the greatest masters, and now she was passing all that knowledge to Emma. They started with the basics again: scales, finger exercises, posture, breathing. Mrs. Helen said that to build something great, you must first build a strong foundation. Playing piano is not just about your hands, Mrs. Helen would say. It is about your whole body, your mind, your soul. Everything must work together. Emma listened to every word. She practiced every exercise until her fingers ached. Some nights she would come home so tired she could barely eat dinner, but she never complained. She never stopped. As months went by, Emma's playing improved in ways she never imagined. She moved from simple pieces to more difficult ones. Chopin. Each composer taught her something new. Each piece opened a door in her heart. Mrs. Helen often sat in a chair nearby, eyes closed, listening. Sometimes she would nod. Sometimes she would clap her hands. Sometimes she would cry. "Music is emotion, Emma," she once said. "When you play, you must feel everything: joy, pain, love, loss. The piano is not just an instrument, it is an extension of your soul." Emma understood. Every time she sat at the piano, she thought of her mother. She remembered the cardboard keyboard. She remembered her mother's tired smile. She remembered the promise she made. And she played, not just with her fingers, but with her entire heart. At school, life was still difficult. Tyler and his friends had not stopped bullying her. If anything, it had gotten worse. They spread rumors about her. They tripped her in the hallways. They made her life miserable. One day, Tyler cornered her behind the school building. He had 2 of his friends with him. "Hey, piano girl," he sneered, "still dreaming about Carnegie Hall?" Emma said nothing. She tried to walk past them, but they blocked her way. "You know what I think," Tyler said. "I think you're lying. I think you can't even play a single note. You're just a sad little girl making up stories to get attention." "Leave me alone," Emma said quietly. "Make me?" Tyler pushed her hard. Emma fell to the ground, her books scattered everywhere. The boys laughed. "You're nothing, Emma. Your mom is dead. Your dreams are dead. Why don't you just accept it?" They walked away, still laughing. Emma sat on the cold ground, tears running down her face. The words hurt more than the fall. They cut deeper than any bruise. But then she thought of Mrs. Helen. She thought of her mother. She thought of all those hours at the piano. She wiped her tears and stood up. "You're wrong," she whispered to herself. "You're all wrong, and one day I will prove it." That evening, Emma played with more passion than ever before. Mrs. Helen noticed the change immediately. "Something happened," Mrs. Helen said. "It was not a question." Emma nodded. She told Mrs. Helen about Tyler, about the bullying, about the cruel words. Mrs. Helen listened quietly. When Emma finished, she took her hands gently. Emma, there will always be people who try to tear you down. They are afraid. They are jealous. They do not understand that dreams are the most powerful things in the world. It hurts so much, Emma said. I know, but let me tell you something. Mrs. Helen's eyes were serious. Pain is fuel. Every cruel word, every tear you cry, let it become energy. Put it into your music. Transform it into something beautiful. From that day on, Emma did exactly that. Every time someone laughed at her, she practiced harder. Every time someone said she would fail, she played longer. The pain did not disappear, but it became something else. It became power. By the time Emma turned 15, she was playing pieces that most professional musicians found difficult. Her technique was nearly perfect, but more importantly, her music had soul. It had depth. It told stories that words could never tell. You are ready, Mrs. Helen said one afternoon. Emma looked at her. Ready for what? Ready to share your gift with the world. Mrs. Helen walked to her old desk and pulled out a piece of paper. There is a competition, the National Young Pianists Competition. The winner receives a full scholarship to one of the best music schools in the world, and they get to perform at Carnegie Hall. Emma's heart stopped. Carnegie Hall. Yes, Mrs. Helen smiled. The place you have dreamed about since you were a little girl. Emma took the paper with trembling hands. The competition was in 6 months, in New York City. Hundreds of young pianists from across the country would compete. I can't, Emma said suddenly. There will be so many talented people, people who have practiced their whole lives, people who have real pianos and famous teachers and… Stop, Mrs. Helen's voice was firm. You have practiced your whole life too. You have a real piano right here, and you have a teacher who has played on the greatest stages in the world. She knelt down so she could look into Emma's eyes. But more than that, you have something none of them have. You have a reason, a promise, a love so deep that it flows through every note you play. Emma felt tears welling up. What if I fail? What if everyone laughs again? Mrs. Helen held her face gently. Your mother did not ask you to win, Emma. She asked you to play, to make it beautiful. That is all you have to do. Win or lose, you will have kept your promise. Emma thought about her mother's words in the hospital. Play for me. One day, make it beautiful. She looked at the paper in her hands. Then she looked at Mrs. Helen. I'll do it, she said. I'll enter the competition. Mrs. Helen hugged her tightly. That's my girl. Now let's get to work. We have 6 months to make you shine brighter than any star they have ever seen. And so began the hardest 6 months of Emma's life. Every day after school, every weekend, every holiday, she practiced until her fingers bled. She played until she could not keep her eyes open. But she never stopped. She never gave up. Because somewhere in heaven her mother was listening, and Emma was going to make her proud. The months flew by faster than Emma could have imagined. Spring turned to summer. Summer turned to fall. And before she knew it, the competition was only 1 month away. Emma practiced harder than ever. Mrs. Helen pushed her to her limits. They worked on every detail, every note, every pause, every breath. Nothing was too small to perfect. The difference between good and great is in the details, Mrs. Helen would say. A slight pause here, a softer touch there. These small things create magic. Emma listened and learned. She made mistakes and she fixed them. She fell down and she got back up. Her fingers grew stronger. Her heart grew braver. For her competition piece, she decided to do something special. Instead of playing a famous classical composition, she would play something original, a piece she had written herself. It was called Mother's Song. She had started writing it the day after her mother died. At first, it was just a simple melody, the lullaby her mother used to hum to her when she was little. But over the years, it had grown into something much more. It told the story of their love, their struggles, their dreams. It was the most personal piece of music she had ever created. Mrs. Helen cried the first time she heard it. This is not just a song, Emma, she said. This is your soul on paper. This is everything you are. One evening, Emma came home from practice later than usual. Aunt was waiting for her in the kitchen with a stern look on her face. "Where have you been?" asked. "You're never at the library this late." Emma froze. She had managed to keep her secret for 3 years, but now, with the competition so close, she knew she had to tell the truth. "I haven't been at the library," Emma admitted. "I've been taking piano lessons." His eyes widened. "Piano lessons from whom, with what money?" "A woman named Mrs. Helen. She teaches me for free, at the church on Maple Street." Stood up, her face was red. "You've been lying to me for 3 years. I've been worried sick about you, and you've been sneaking off to some church." "I'm sorry," Emma said. "I didn't think you would understand." "Understand what? That you're wasting your time on some silly dream," shook her head. "Emma, I told you years ago, piano is not practical. You need to focus on school, on getting a real job." "It's not silly to me," Emma's voice rose. "Music is everything to me. It's the only thing that keeps me connected to my mom." The room went silent. His expression softened slightly, but she did not back down. "Your mother is gone, Emma, and no amount of piano playing is going to bring her back." The words hit Emma like a slap. She felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to cry. "I know she's gone," Emma said quietly, "but I made her a promise. I promised I would keep playing. I promised I would make her proud. And there's a competition next month in New York. The winner gets to play at Carnegie Hall." Laughed, not a kind laugh, but a harsh one. "Carnegie Hall? Emma, be realistic. Do you have any idea how many talented people will be at that competition? People who have been playing since before they could walk. People with expensive teachers and fancy schools." "I don't care," Emma said. "I have to try." "And who is going to take you to New York? Who is going to pay for the trip? I certainly can't afford it." Emma had not thought about that. She had been so focused on practicing that she forgot about the practical details. Her heart sank. I don't know," she admitted. Sighed. "This is exactly what I mean. Dreams are nice, but they don't solve real problems. Now go to your room. We'll talk about this later." Emma went upstairs with heavy feet. She closed her door and sat on her bed. For the first time in months, she felt completely hopeless. How could she get to New York? The bus ticket alone would cost money she didn't have. She would need a place to stay, food to eat. It was impossible. She looked at the photograph of her mother that she kept on her nightstand. It was the only photo she had. Her mother was smiling, her eyes full of love. "What do I do, Mama?" Emma whispered. "I'm so close, but I don't know how to get there." The next day, Emma told Mrs. Helen everything. About Aunt, about the money, about feeling hopeless. Mrs. Helen listened without interrupting. When Emma finished, the old woman was quiet for a long moment. "Wait here," Mrs. Helen finally said. She walked to the back of the church and disappeared into a small office. A few minutes later, she returned with an envelope in her hand. She gave it to Emma. "What's this?" Emma asked. "Open it." Emma opened the envelope. Inside were several bills and a note. She counted the money. It was enough for a round-trip bus ticket to New York and several nights at a cheap hotel. "Mrs. Helen, I can't take this," Emma said, her voice shaking. "This is too much." "Yes, you can." Mrs. Helen sat down beside her. "Emma, I told you once that I stopped teaching after my daughter died. What I didn't tell you is why. I blamed myself. I thought if I had spent less time on music and more time with her, maybe things would have been different." Emma listened, her heart aching. "But then you came along," Mrs. Helen continued. "You reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. You gave me a reason to teach again, a reason to believe in dreams again." She placed her hand on Emma's cheek. "Let me do this for you. Let me help you keep your promise." Emma broke down and cried. She cried for her mother. She cried for Mrs. Helen. She cried for herself. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you so much." Mrs. Helen held her close. "No, child, thank you. Now dry your tears. We have work to do. The competition is in 4 weeks and we are going to make sure you are ready." For the next 4 weeks, Emma practiced like her life depended on it. She woke up early and went to bed late. She played until her fingers hurt, and then she played some more. Aunt did not support her, but she did not stop her either. She simply pretended the competition did not exist. Maya, Emma's only friend at school, was the complete opposite. She was excited and supportive. "You're going to blow everyone away," Maya said. "I just know it." "I'm scared," Emma admitted. "What if I mess up? What if I forget the notes? What if—" "Stop," Maya said. "You've been working toward this your whole life. You're going to be amazing, and I wish I could be there to see it." The night before Emma left for New York, she visited her mother's grave. It had been years since she had been here. The headstone was weathered, but her mother's name was still visible. "I'm doing it, Mama," Emma whispered. "I'm going to New York. I'm going to play for you. I don't know if I'll win, but I know I'll make you proud. Because you're the reason I'm still here. You're the reason I never gave up." She placed a small flower on the grave, just like she had done years ago. "Watch over me, Mama. I'm going to need all the help I can get." The wind rustled through the trees. Emma smiled. She could almost feel her mother's presence. Tomorrow her journey would begin. Tomorrow she would take the first step toward keeping her promise. And no matter what happened, she would give it everything she had. The bus ride to New York took 8 hours. Emma sat by the window and watched the world pass by. Towns turned into cities. Flat fields turned into tall buildings. The closer she got to New York, the faster her heart beat. She had never been to a big city before. The noise, the lights, the crowds, it was overwhelming. People rushed past her like she was invisible. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going. Everyone except Emma. She found her hotel, a small, cheap place near the bus station. The room was tiny. The bed was hard, but Emma did not care. She was in New York. She was about to compete for her dream. The competition was held at the Lincoln Center, one of the most famous performing arts venues in the world. When Emma walked through the doors, she could barely breathe. The building was enormous. The ceilings were high. Everything was beautiful and grand. She registered at the front desk and received a number, 47. There were over 60 competitors. As she waited in the large hall with the other contestants, Emma looked around. These were not ordinary kids. They looked confident, professional. Many had parents and coaches with them, giving them last-minute advice. Emma was alone. She saw a girl about her age practicing finger exercises in the corner. The girl's fingers moved so fast they were almost a blur. Another boy was reading sheet music, his eyes scanning the pages with intense focus. Emma's stomach twisted. These people were good, really good. What was she thinking? How could she possibly compete against them? A voice cut through her thoughts, nervous. She turned around. A tall boy with dark hair and kind eyes was standing next to her. He wore a neat suit and had a gentle smile. "A little," Emma admitted. "Me too," the boy said. "I'm David. This is my 3rd competition. Still terrifies me every time." "I'm Emma. This is my 1st." David nodded. "First time is the hardest, but let me give you some advice. Don't think about the judges. Don't think about the other competitors. Just think about why you're here. Why do you play?" Emma thought about her mother, about the cardboard piano, about the promise. "For someone I love," she said quietly. David smiled. "Then play for them. Nothing else matters." The competition began. One by one, contestants took the stage and played their pieces. The performances were incredible, technically perfect, brilliantly executed. Each one made Emma feel smaller and smaller. She watched a girl play Chopin with flawless precision. She watched a boy perform with power and passion. These were not just talented kids, they were prodigies. Number 47, Emma. Her name echoed through the hall. Her legs felt like jelly as she stood up. This was it. This was her moment. She walked toward the stage. The spotlight was blinding. The grand piano sat in the center, waiting for her. It was the most beautiful piano she had ever seen, black and shining like a mirror. Emma sat down on the bench. The auditorium was huge. Hundreds of people sat in the red velvet seats, watching her. Judges with serious faces held their pens ready. Her hands were shaking. Her mind went blank. For a terrible moment she forgot everything, the notes, the music, even her own name. Then she remembered what Mrs. Helen had told her. Your mother did not ask you to win. She asked you to play, to make it beautiful. Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out the small photograph of her mother. She placed it gently on the music stand, where she could see her mother's smiling face. "This is for you, Mama," she whispered. She closed her eyes, she took a deep breath, and she began to play. The first notes of Mother's song floated into the air. They were soft, like a gentle whisper. The melody was the lullaby her mother used to sing, simple, sweet, full of love. As the piece progressed, it grew more complex. It told the story of their life together. The joy of learning piano for the first time, the warmth of practicing on a cardboard keyboard, the laughter they shared in their tiny apartment. Then the music turned darker. It spoke of loss, of pain, of a little girl standing at her mother's grave promising to keep playing. The notes cried, they mourned, they broke. But they did not stay broken. Slowly the music began to rise again. It spoke of hope, of a kind stranger who believed in a sad girl's dream, of secret hours in a small church, learning, growing, becoming stronger. The piece built to a powerful climax. Emma's fingers flew across the keys with passion she did not know she had. Every emotion she had ever felt, every tear, every laugh, every moment of doubt and every moment of faith poured out of her and into the music. And then softly the piece returned to the lullaby, but now it was different. It was not just a mother singing to her child. It was a child singing back to her mother, a promise fulfilled, a love that could never die. The final note rang out and slowly faded into silence. Emma opened her eyes. Her face was wet with tears. She did not remember crying, but there they were, evidence of everything she had put into those few minutes. The auditorium was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Then someone stood up, then another, then another. The entire audience rose to their feet. The applause began, not polite clapping but thunderous, overwhelming applause that shook the walls. Emma looked at the crowd in disbelief. People were crying. Judges were wiping their eyes. Even the other contestants were applauding. She stood up on shaky legs. She picked up her mother's photograph and held it to her heart. She took a bow. The applause went on and on. It seemed like it would never stop. As Emma walked off the stage, David was waiting for her. His eyes were red. "That," he said, his voice cracking, "was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard." Emma could not speak. She just nodded. The rest of the competition passed in a blur. More contestants played. More performances were given. But Emma barely noticed. She was in a daze. Finally, all the performances were done. The judges gathered to make their decision. The contestants waited in the hall, tension thick in the air. After what felt like forever, the head judge walked to the microphone. "We have seen extraordinary talent today," she said. "The level of skill and artistry has been truly remarkable, but one performance stood above the rest, not because of technical perfection, though the technique was excellent, but because it touched our hearts in a way that music is supposed to, but rarely does." She paused. "The winner of this year's National Young Pianist Competition, with a full scholarship to and a performance slot at Carnegie Hall, is contestant number 47, Emma." The room exploded. People cheered. People clapped. People rushed to congratulate her. But Emma stood frozen. She could not believe it. She had won. She had actually won. Tears streamed down her face. She looked at the photograph in her hand, her mother's smiling face. "I did it, Mama," she whispered. "I kept my promise." And somewhere, she knew, her mother was smiling too. The news of Emma's victory spread like wildfire. Newspapers wrote about her. Television stations called for interviews. Everyone wanted to know the story of the orphan girl who had come out of nowhere and won the biggest piano competition in the country. Emma gave a few interviews, but she did not like the attention. She was not used to people caring about her. She was not used to being seen. When she returned to Riverside, things were different. The kids who used to make fun of her now looked at her with wide eyes. Teachers congratulated her. Even strangers on the street recognized her. Tyler, the boy who had bullied her for years, did not say a word. He just looked away whenever Emma walked by. His silence was louder than all his cruel words had ever been. Aunt was perhaps the most surprising change of all. When Emma walked through the door was waiting for her. Her face was not stern or cold, it was soft, almost gentle. "I saw the video," said, "of your performance. Someone posted it online." Emma did not know what to say. "I was wrong," continued. The words seemed difficult for her. "I thought I was protecting you by telling you to give up on your dream, but I was just scared you would be hurt, scared you would fail." She walked over to Emma, and for the first time since Emma had moved in, she hugged her. "Your mother would be so proud of you," whispered, "and so am I." Emma cried in her aunt's arms. For years she had felt alone in this house. Now finally she felt like she had family again. The months leading up to the Carnegie Hall performance were busy. Emma started her studies at the famous music school in New York. She practiced every day with some of the best teachers in the world. Her skills grew sharper. Her music grew deeper. But she never forgot Mrs. Helen. Every week she called the old woman and told her about everything she was learning. And every time Mrs. Helen would say the same thing: "Remember, Emma, it's not about being perfect, it's about being true." The night before the big performance, Emma could not sleep. She lay in her small dorm room, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, she would walk onto the stage of Carnegie Hall, the same stage where the greatest musicians in history had played. She picked up the photograph of her mother and looked at it for a long time. "I used to dream about this moment," she whispered. "When I was little, playing on that cardboard piano, I imagined what it would be like. But I always thought you would be there with me. I thought you would be sitting in the front row, crying and clapping." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I miss you so much, Mama, every single day. But I know you'll be watching. I know you'll hear every note. And tomorrow I'm going to play like you're right there beside me, because you always have been." The next evening, Emma stood backstage at Carnegie Hall. She wore a beautiful black dress that Mrs. Helen had sent her as a gift. Around her neck was a jade necklace, the same necklace her mother used to wear. Maya had found it in Emma's old apartment and had kept it safe all these years. The stage manager approached her. "5 minutes, Miss Emma." Emma nodded. Her heart was racing, but she was not afraid. She was ready. She peeked through the curtain. The hall was packed. Over 2,000 people sat in the red velvet seats. The chandeliers sparkled overhead. The grand piano waited on the stage, shining under the spotlight. In the front row, Emma saw familiar faces. Maya had made the trip all the way from Riverside. She was waving excitedly. Aunt sat next to her, smiling proudly, and beside them in a wheelchair was Mrs. Helen. The old woman's eyes were shining with tears. Emma's heart swelled. She was not alone anymore. She had people who loved her, people who believed in her. The stage manager touched her shoulder. "It's time." Emma walked out onto the stage. The applause was deafening. The lights were blinding, but she did not feel small. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She sat down at the piano and adjusted the microphone. Before she played, she wanted to say something. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she said. Her voice was soft but steady. Most of you know my story by now. I lost my mother when I was 11 years old. She worked 2 jobs to pay for my piano lessons. She believed in my dream when no one else did. The audience was silent, listening to every word. Before she died, she asked me to make her a promise. She asked me to keep playing, to make it beautiful. Emma's voice cracked. This performance is for her. Mama, I know you can hear me now. This one's for you. She placed her mother's photograph on the music stand, just like she had done at the competition. Then she placed her fingers on the keys. And she began to play. The music that filled Carnegie Hall that night was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. It was not just a performance, it was a conversation. Emma was talking to her mother through the notes. She was telling her about the pain of losing her, the loneliness of growing up without her, the joy of finding Mrs. Helen, the fear of standing on this very stage. And most of all, she was telling her mother that she loved her, that she had never stopped loving her, that she would never stop. The piece ended with the lullaby, soft and gentle, like a mother's kiss good night. The final note hung in the air, then faded into silence. For a moment no one moved, no one breathed. Then the entire hall erupted. People stood up, cheering and crying. The applause was so loud it shook the walls. Maya was jumping up and down. Aunt was wiping her eyes. Mrs. Helen had both hands over her heart. Emma stood up and took a bow. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling, really smiling for the first time in years. After the performance, reporters surrounded her. One of them asked, "Emma, what would you say to the people who laughed at your dream? The ones who said you would never make it?" Emma thought about Tyler, about Aunt's early words, about all the people who had told her she was not good enough. She smiled gently. "I would say thank you, they made me play louder." Later that night, Emma sat alone on the empty stage. Everyone had gone home. The lights were dim. The hall was quiet. She looked out at the thousands of empty seats and thought about how far she had come. A little girl with a cardboard piano, an orphan with nothing but a dream, and now a Carnegie Hall performer. "I did it, Mama," she whispered. "I kept my promise." The jade necklace felt warm against her chest, and in that moment, Emma knew that her mother was not just watching from heaven. She was right there with her, in her heart, in her music, in every note she would ever play. The journey had been long and hard. There had been pain, loss, tears, and doubt. But through it all, one thing had remained constant: love. Love for her mother, love for music, love for a dream that had started on a cardboard piano in a tiny apartment. Emma walked off the stage carrying that love with her. The future was bright with possibility, more performances, more music, more chances to touch hearts and change lives. But no matter how famous she became, no matter how many stages she played on, she would never forget where she came from. She would never forget the woman who had sacrificed everything for her. And every time she sat down at a piano, she would hear her mother's voice whispering in her ear, "That's my girl. You make me so proud." Because some promises are not just kept, they are lived. And Emma would live hers every single day for the rest of her life.